Good evening, guys. It's Saturday night. It's Pontificating with Pete on revolutionary change, and hope you're all doing well. As you know, we've been getting smashed hard by the algorithm in a negative way as of late. So we ask you with great appreciation to smash that like button if you are here and share the stream if you can. I hope you're all doing well. And we have got a lot to cover tonight, and I'm going to let you all know up front what this live stream is going to be about. You know, a lot of times people want to have an idea of what the protocol is going to be. You know, what are we going to cover? Are there going to be a plethora of different stories? And as I was prepping for the show earlier today, I realized that there is so much right now to cover with Israel, and it isn't being covered, that essentially the entire show is going to be devoted to Israel. And we cannot lose sight of how significant of a problem our relationship, our unholy alliance with this little nation in West Asia has become. And every day that passes, more and more of the Hasbara is shoved down our collective throats. And I was thinking to myself the other day, you know, I'm looking around, and right now you have the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. And when you get into this world of politics and you're surrounded by, in many cases, similar opinions, controversial opinions, different opinions in many ways, and then you realize just how small of a microcosm it really is. As I hark back on my trip to DC with Jen and the Doctors Against Genocide, what you realize is that we really are in a very small bubble of sorts. Not that people generally don't care about what's going on. I think they do care. But in terms of how much of an impact they want to allow it to be on their daily lives and whether they want to get involved in a way that, you know, creates some type of uncomfortability for them, that's not something that's common. And as I've been pointing out time and again, and will continue to point out, get comfortable with getting uncomfortable. That to me is what's really in play here. Because I think in many ways people are just caught up with this idea that we don't have to feel uncomfortable. We can isolate ourselves from the pain. And there's many different ways to do that, as we've seen. I believe that as long as we have a breathing channel, however hard it's being hit, it is incumbent upon us to do what we have to do to bridge as many divides as we can within this arena, because in the end, this is a class war, nothing more. That is why I will be speaking with Dave Renner of the Liberty Vault later this evening, and hope you'll stick around for that. And I contemplated, where do we start this evening? Where do we dive in? Where do we really get going? I had no intention of talking about this story because I didn't think it was that important, but I do think in the context of what was discussed between Tim Pool and Randy Fine, it is necessary to cover this part of the story. Randy Fine is being challenged by Dan Bilzerian for Florida's 6th congressional district as we speak. And you want to give Randy credit for going on channels and getting whatever pathetic message he has out there. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, how pathetic does Tim Pool have to be to want to have somebody like Randy Fine on his channel? There is such thing as just not talking to certain people because they're not worth talking to. I really don't understand where any value at all would come from speaking with such a buffoon. And yet, he decided to have him on. And sure enough, he buttered him up, no pun intended, with the topic of Israel.
A question for you, right? So I keep hearing about how the biggest podcasts in the world right now are those that are critical of Israel. And the people that Trump has been criticizing, these prominent podcasters, all have some of the top spots. And they're all very critical of Israel. Some of them discuss what they call greater Israel and Jewish supremacy. Yep. And I guess my issue is, why haven't the Jews control, considering they control all media? Yeah, why are they allowing that to happen?
It's a great question.
Well, we can start with myself and Jen. And the fact of the matter is, on the one hand, we saw our channel grow exponentially over the last 10 months. You know, we spent over 4 years getting to just over 20,000 subscribers. And in the last 10 months, we've grown 100,000 subscribers. Now, Israel and talking about it had a lot to do with it, for sure. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't come with a great deal of scrutiny and a great deal of risk. We've been shadow banned. We have lost relationships, family and friends. Can't even really call them that anymore if they're really on board with all of that nonsense. But then you think about the other aspects that come with it. The economic aspects, lost my job. The legal aspects, threats therein. I've been visited by the police. And no, it wasn't a friendly visit. It was a threatening visit. And who's to say it's not going to happen again? And this is what we're up against. And yet, one of the things that I took away in the early stages of observing this conversation, because I didn't watch it, I only watched a few clips. But here's something that I noticed. Two things. Number one, when Tim was really flying high, and I mean really flying high, he was getting 60,000 live viewers at a time. When this conversation was going on, he had a quarter of that, 15,000. Now, that's still very impressive, no two ways about it. But when you're on the corporate algorithm and you're only getting 15,000 live viewers, maybe your shtick's just not working like it used to. And if that's not enough, Tim restricted commentary on the live stream with Randy Fine to only those that are official members of Timcast IRL. So what that means is only the people that are essentially paying are the ones that are allowed to make comments. Because we all know if everyone was allowed to share their thoughts about Randy Swine, it wouldn't be very good. And why has Tim Pool gone down this road? For one, it's obviously about the money. Two, it may be about certain relationships that he's forged that he can't get himself out of now. And if there's a third reason, it's because he doesn't have any principles. And for a lot of people that are in these spaces, there are no principles. They don't exist. People switch sides, people talk, they do what they have to do as long as they're getting paid. Jen went on with Tim in 2021, I believe. It's been a while. Lots changed since then. But, you know, the good thing about that whole experience is that we connected with Luke Rakowski. We connected with Ian Crossland. We ultimately connected with Clint Russell. There were some tangible benefits to going on the show. A lot of people recognized Jen. More people started watching us. Again, it's a different world now. The Israel issue has certainly taken this thing into a completely different stratosphere because now, again, it's like playing poker. You can bluff your way to success. You can bluff your way to victory many times over. But when you have to show your hand, in the case of Israel, you are either on the side of justice or you're not. That's a decision you have to make. And if it comes at the risk of losing that corporate algorithm, that very lucrative lifestyle that you've been accustomed to for a very long time, you will start segments with, isn't it amazing all the crap that the Zionist Jews have to deal with? Isn't that something? Well, let Swine share his thoughts.
Question. And, you know, it has a lot to do with numbers. You know, there are fewer Jews in the world than there are people who live in Beijing, China. It's only 15 million Jews.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's
China's got a billion.
there's 1.2 billion Muslims in the world. So if you measure your audience based on number of people, do you think you're going to get a bigger audience if you target Jews or if you don't target Jews? There just
easy.
aren't that many of us. And I think that's the biggest issue.
No, the biggest issue is two things. It's not just two, but I would definitely say in terms of the biggest issues here, which of course he will never talk about, but we will talk about. And that, of course, is controlling of the banking system, which is obviously the biggest reason. And, you know, this kind of problem plays itself out constantly in the arena that is politic. When people ask themselves, why is it that certain people always seem to be in the mix when it comes to political consultancy, being hired for campaigns, whether as managers, consultants, fundraisers? There's many reasons why these people get involved. Is there a reason why Randy Fine is likely to win re-election? Fortifying your positions once you get them. And this is one of the things that the Zionists do. And the biggest way that they do it is through money. And in control of the banking system, you have endless amounts of money. And this is exactly why Israel gets hundreds of billions of dollars, billion with a B. That's why they get them. When you are in control, this is one of the big reasons why the libertarians, which we'll discuss with Dave at the top of the hour, are huge proponents of ending the Fed. When you can just go out and print money and give it to Israel because they're the ones who control the money, what are you going to do? Any logical person would look at somebody like Randy Fine and say, well, there's no way in hell that a person like that, forget how gargantuan he is, how much of a bastard he is, should ever be in a position of federal authority. Let me tell you something, guys. I walked past hundreds of federal legislator offices in the halls of Congress when I was in D.C. The most offensive office that I walked in front of was his. You can't even imagine how pathetic he is in terms of his outward display in many ways. But at the same time, he is considered a fixture within the Zionist hierarchy in federal politics. That creates fortified positions at the congressional level within the district that he lives in. People always looking for a handout, people looking for an opportunity. One hand washes the other. And that's the way it's been for the longest time. And when you would say, okay, well, would somebody please take a step back and could we at least make an exception? Somebody is always, especially in DC, somebody is always ready, willing, and able to take up the reins because they want that life. Whether it's for the money, the glory, the power, whatever it is, there's always somebody. And Randy Fine is living, breathing proof of just that. That's why he could get away with saying this obscene, obnoxious nonsense. He don't care. It doesn't matter. And even more proof, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of people think that Tim Pool is compromised. No one's going to push back on this. Nobody.
It's a small number.
This one, the guest we had on, I'm not going to say her name or whatever, but people can look her up. She said that I was evil for protecting an evil group of people that were controlling everything. And I'm just sitting here being like,
we do a really bad job if we're trying to control everything. I mean, it's really
come on.
bad.
You only just got Paramount? You finally have one media outlet and you bought TikTok and you know, because Jews are all one big conglomerate.
Yeah.
But, you know, with the Ellisons buying TikTok and CBS, the argument from many of these people is that pro-Israel and Zionists are buying media to stop the spread of anti-Zionist messaging.
I don't know if he gets talking points before he goes live, but if you told me that he did, it would not surprise me in the least. Because the only way you could be this involved, and Tim is involved, let me tell you something. I've been around him. We've spoken. I see how he does his setup. He is thoroughly involved. He knows a lot about what's going on. So the idea that he is just naive and doesn't know any better, not a chance in hell. And when you're running the type of operation that he's running with the amount of money that is probably being funneled into his show. Now, let me tell you something. You're only as good as the audience that you can provide. And when he's providing, you know, got live viewers at the 50, 60,000 clip at a given time, you're useful. 15,000 live viewers, you're still useful, but not like you used to be. And who knows how much longer it's going to last. Which is why the more he continues to slip down the mountain, the more likely he is to go along to get along and say ludicrous bullshit like this. What else could it be? Defending Israel? Defending Israel now? Right now. This is not only defending Israel, this is defending the notion that there isn't a grand conspiracy within corporate media to protect Israel and the State Department's interests. Are you fucking mental? The only way you can do this is if you're compromised. Period. And you do this with Randy Swine? My Lord. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't even going to cover this because I don't, you know, there really isn't anything tangible to it. But when you talk like this and you do it with Randy Fine, you almost have to wonder if he was given orders to have Randy Fine on his channel.
I thought we already owned it all.
That's the point. I'm like, right, they're doing it because they didn't control it already. It's different people that you're complaining about. Guys, special interest exists. Conspiracies are all over the place. There's Islamic special interest groups that fund and lobby and do these things. Israel does these things too. You're allowed to criticize any government you want.
Yep.
It's the conspiracy insanity that drives me insane.
The day the Muslim Brotherhood controls one of the major banks in the United States or around the world, then you can have something to talk about. But you don't have that. What you have is Hasbro talking points. That's it. That's what you have. And if this is what you're reduced to, you're not long for this. One of the great aspects of what we do, even though if you guys have been paying attention to our channel for the past week, pretty much ever since I did that clip on Patrick Bett, Star of David and Tucker Carlson, which did pretty well, we have basically been put in the corner once again. And this is the risk that comes with not being in the club, with not playing by the rules of the corporate rigged game. We can do well amongst our audience. And if you haven't smashed that like button, guys, 439 watching and only 222 likes, it's the only thing we ask of you. Please smash that like button. This is the risk. This is the only risk. At any moment, they will rip the rug out from under us and say, now you could sit in the corner for a week and lose money, thousands of dollars. And that's what it costs. It's thousands of dollars in revenue for the channel. But at least we can lay our heads down on our pillows at night and know that what we're doing is right. How people like Tim and the rest of them live with themselves, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how people make a dishonest buck. I really don't. But there are people that will. There are people that are willing to do it. And he is more than willing to do it because we've seen how he lives. He lives big, very big. And that costs a lot of money. And if you want to maintain that lifestyle, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, some really big ones. And all the while, when he had something going that actually was working, he got greedy. Like everybody else, just gets a little too greedy. He had something good. He wanted more. He wanted more. He got more. And then when he wanted more, he wanted to be bigger than Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. And that's not working. He's not that guy. He's just not. He's also got bad habits when he does his stream. But be it as it may, this is an example of one of many. And again, this was what I thought was a good touch point for the evening, because in many ways, we have to constantly remind people of just how much control they actually have, How much actual control does Zionism have in the United States? Why is this such a significant problem? It's a significant problem for many reasons. But when it rears its head and you see it, you can't unsee it. And then it just becomes another example of why we must continue to talk about this so that people that are in those areas recognize it and see it for what it's worth. Now, I am going to show you something that you have not seen anywhere else, but somehow I caught it. I looked it up. I read about it. I couldn't find it. Nobody covered it. Who covered it? Some pro-Israel channel decided to put it out there. Like fools. And now we know about it. And now you're going to know about it. Israel in San Francisco. In honor of Israel's Independence Day, San Francisco City Hall was lit in blue and white. Thank you, San Francisco City Hall. So here's a couple of interesting points about this that you probably didn't hear about. Number one, San Francisco, the city of San Francisco, has completely blocked commentary on this story. You will not find it in any publication. Doesn't exist. It's not out there. But these dumbasses, because they're so brazen in their ego, you know, for anybody who's ever seen The Devil's Advocate, remember what Al Pacino said. Vanity, definitely my favorite sin. And it is for them. Vanity is an Israeli's favorite sin. They love it. They jerk off to stuff like this. They love looking and saying, yeah, we are in control. This is an example, a prime example of that. And the fact that you can't find anything about it, you want to know why you can't find anything about it? I'll tell you why. Do you know who the mayor of San Francisco is? The mayor of San Francisco is a man by the name of Dan Laurie. Now, many of you may not know who Dan Laurie is. I didn't know who he was. Why would I care about the mayor of San Francisco? I was in San Francisco for the first time a couple of months ago. But frankly, my time there, as most people's time there would probably reflect, that's a city for the rich, especially if you want to enjoy yourself. The time I enjoyed was over on the other side of the state in Yosemite, hiking in National Park. That was what I did. But in the time that I was in San Francisco, listen, there's a lot of good things about San Francisco for sure. The food is excellent. There's many places you could visit. The Pacific is great, but again, I'm only there for a couple of days. I don't have to live in it. And the people who have to live in it and ask themselves, why does San Francisco suck to high heaven so much? Well, here's a good reason. Colin, if you would, please. San Francisco Mayor Daniel Laurie denounces "Tax the Jews" chant heard during protests. Now, this is where it gets interesting. And of course, if it's the Times of Israel, we already know that there's going to be dealing of a lot of grains of salt, plenty of salt, and they're salty. So here we go. Chant appears to be shouted by woman who calls to tax Israel, because remember, Israel and Jews are the same thing, in accordance with somebody like Daniel Laurie. Now, Daniel Laurie is an interesting person. We're going to get to that in a minute. Democratic Socialists of America, which was leading Tax the Rich demonstration, says she isn't a party member. Again, I don't know why that matters, but that's the mayor. Yeah, he looks like a charming lad, doesn't he? Let's continue. Jewish leaders and California elected officials have condemned an anti-Semitic chant that was audible during a protest Wednesday against the repeal of a local San Francisco tax ordinance. During a news conference addressing a new housing construction development plan hosted by San Francisco Mayor Daniel Laurie and San Francisco District 5 Supervisor Balil Mahmoud, protesters with the DSA chanted "Tax the Rich." According to the video reviewed by the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, one woman in the scene can be clearly seen and heard chanting "Tax Israel" and "Tax the Jews." Laurie, who is Jewish, condemned the chants which he said had come from a group of people. No, it sounds like it came from one person who said it. But at the end of the day, who cares? There is this thing called free speech. We know that we are living in a lawless country now, so who cares? In any event, at an event this afternoon, a group of individuals that were chanting tax the rich began to shout tax the Jews, suggesting that Jews are wealthy is a tired trope. And targeting our community at the event focused on creating economic opportunity for San Franciscans is decidedly anti-Semitic. I will never accept hate directed at the Jewish community or any community in our city. Those are not San Francisco values. We're better than that. This is the person who called for the illuminating lights City Hall. Praise Israel. That's this guy. The DSA, the largest socialist organization in the country, yeah, they're big, distanced itself from the chants, saying that the only single person was involved and she was not a DSA member. Again, saboteurs, but even still, say what you want. During today's protests of the Prop 1 repeal, a non-member joined the crowd and spouted disgusting anti-Semitic. So of course you cave. Of course you cave to this nonsense. This is exactly why the left has no balls. DSA members and other protesters asked her to stop, but she refused. We want to be clear that whatever hate she holds isn't shared by DSA members. Again, don't even address it. In the videos, the woman is wearing a head covering and glasses and appears to be pacing a distance away from the other protesters. So again, they're looking for a reason. That's what they're doing. The incident comes as the DSA, which endorsed the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, maybe the only good thing that really came out of them, and opposes economic and military aid to Israel, has both notched major wins and drawn repeated allegations of anti-Semitism. Yeah, of course they do. After the Hamas-led October 7th attack that started the Gaza war, it broke with one of its political stars, New York Representative AOC, following her appearance on a panel where she condemned anti-Semitism. More recently, one of its members, Zohar Mamdani, was elected mayor of New York City. Their DSA member last week challenged a DSA-affiliated elected official for condemning Hamas during an open meeting. In San Francisco, the chant was condemned by other organizations, of course, and lo and behold, Ro Khanna had to stick his nose in there, and ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt, because of course he would. And in a statement by Amy Spittlenik, the CEO of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, what does anti-Semitism look like? This is hate and extremism masquerading as progressive politics when, in fact, nothing about it is progressive, and it is only undermines the fight for justice, all of our safety, and our democracy. Yes, indeed. That's exactly what it is. Now, I guess you're all probably wondering, since this story is impossible to find, who exactly is Dan Laurie? Who exactly does he represent, and what is his background? Dan Laurie, who is the mayor of San Francisco, is actually somebody who comes from a very prominent family. How prominent, you may ask? How prominent is Dan Laurie's background? He is an heir to the Levi Strauss fortune. He is a cousin of Dan Goldman, congressman in New York City. His father, Rabbi Brian Laurie, is a former president of the New Israel Fund. That's another one of those very controversial organizations that is extremely pro-Israel and extremely anti-everything else. And this is who runs San Francisco. Now, again, you would ask yourself, how does a story like this slip through the cracks? How does nobody notice this? It's easy. When you are in control of the media and the money supply, you can make everything go away. And when you are talking San Francisco city politics, there is a reason why AOC, Pelosi, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. There is a reason why Pelosi has been running that city for as long as she has. There's a reason why Feinstein ran the city as long as she has. There's a reason why Laurie is now in control. It's pretty simple. If it is a Zionist haven, they will see to it that their way of thinking and their way of executing politics is the way things are done, no matter what the people want. It's very easy to buy elections. And frankly, who's to say you're quick on the uptick, my friend? Quick on the uptick. All of it. This is how it works. But remember, Dan Laurie's a Democrat, so that makes it okay. And as we have been saying, the thing about the Democrats, but more so the elite liberal class, like in San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Denver, Miami, Asheville, North Carolina, Los Angeles, Boston. What do they all have in common? They're all liberal bastions of the Zionist order. Why are the Democrats worse? Because they protect empire better than Republicans do. What we have in front of us right now, you cannot turn away from. It is impossible to turn away from it. You can't turn away from Trump. You can't turn away from Hegseth. You can't turn away from Patel. You can't turn away from Vance. You can't turn away from any of these clowns, frankly, because they're in over their head and they don't know what they're doing. And they're answering to a greater authority. There is the clown show, because that's what it is. But when somebody like Dan Laurie is in control, you don't even know he's alive. You don't even know where he is. Now you know. But this is one of those lessons. This is one of the reasons why our channel causes problems, even though we're not that big. If we were hitting 5,000 live viewers at a time, I don't know if we would survive. And a big shout out to our friend Lee Camp, whose channel got shut down again. We will be having him on very soon. But these are the risks we take. I don't know how we're going to dress this up, but we will. And I hope you'll all share this story, because this is a story that people need to know. Colin, if you could pull up that image one more time. You think any other country in the world is going to get this treatment? You think anybody else is going to see this? I don't think so. But I think that this is a very big problem. And it isn't so much that they put up the lighting for one evening. That's got nothing to do with it. It's a smoke signal. It's letting them know, hey, we're here to play ball. That's it. And that's why they do it. If this was a Trump special, you'd probably hear about it. But because this is the system, not the actor, this is why we don't even blink at somebody like Trump. We don't like the fact that you've got a demented person with his finger on the button at all times. But in terms of the grand scheme of the fucking system, he's nothing. He takes orders from Laura fucking Loomer. That's how you know things are bad. Period. And this is just one more example of that. And I, for one, think it is important to realize that there are certain people out there who are going to be controversial when it is absolutely necessary. Now, I am going to be the first to admit, I have never listened to the Strokes. I don't really know Julian Casablancas. I don't pay attention to Coachella. Perhaps some people in the chat do. But there is a very popular pre- and post-Zoran New York City type of politicking called subway takes. This is where people are supposed to sit down and have a regular conversation regarding the current status of politics in the United States, and in more specific ways, talking about the very controversial issue of Israel. Now, I know the Strokes, and I know they've been around for a long time. Frankly, I think they've been around for over 25 years. They have a following. They're very popular. And so he sat down for this conversation. And of course, the topic of Israel did come up and was pre-warned about, well, in case you had any intentions of having a career any longer, maybe this might be the end. So enjoy it and let it go. And that's what he did.
What is another take? Give me another one. These are really good.
You want the most controversial one? I know you do.
Yeah, give it to me.
Well, it's been nice having a career with you.
Same. Let's go down with the ship, Captain.
American Zionists get the benefits of, white privileged people, but talk like they are black people during slavery.
100% agree. I've never seen something so shocking where they're like, I'm so
Oppressed.
I'm an oppressed person. I'm like, you are going to a wedding in Tel Aviv right now.
And I could not agree with him more. And it's true. And we've heard these conversations. And let me tell you something as we get to Loomer and Candace later in the evening. The bigotry within Zionism is so thick and so demonstrably out front, you can't miss it. But because they've been in control for so long, they're able to get away with it. But kudos where kudos is due for Julian Casablancas. Kudos to a Greek. He clearly understands that his position is pivotal to this moment, as it should be for everybody. Every minute of every day that a person with a prominent position who knows what's going on, knows it's wrong, and chooses not to do anything about it is aiding and abetting a genocide in their own way. Period. They don't have to like it. But remember, if you don't do politic will do you. And he's not letting that happen. So credit where it's due.
When there are 80,000 dead people, and more, 80,000 plus dead people, including women and children, half a mile away. Absolutely fucked and totally, you know what? I don't think it's bad to say that.
I mean, just for the people that are going to be like, Hamas, October 7th, yes, bad, but, Native American rebellions didn't mean it was, okay to do what we did. Slave rebellions that were violent didn't mean that, slavery is not bad. You know what I mean? So that's the scope of that answer, just to be for the haters,
for the media illiterate.
I don't want to, indoctrination is such a strong thing. We want to be part of the tribe. And if, we started like burning weirdos and so everyone just genetically almost wants to be normal. So I get it, but it is a sad fact, the brainwashing of just people in general, where you can't be mad just because someone was like, something was rammed down their throat necessarily.
Do you think that?
Okay. Now, I am willing to give a little bit of grace, however little it may be, because as we have seen, and we've seen a lot of it, we know that people are indoctrinated into this world. However, there are a lot of things that I was perhaps taught when I was growing up, Jen was taught when she was growing up, that we now know is absolutely wrong. Eventually, you are responsible, again, personal responsibility. I know it's hard to fathom for a lot of people. Eventually, you have to take responsibility for your actions. There is such thing, as Jen likes to say, for atoning for what you've done. And there are plenty of people, whether within the Jewish community, the Zionist Christian community, we've seen them, we've had them as guests. We are well aware of this. Atoning is a huge part of this. The fact that there are people who still don't want to speak up and out after 2.5 years, knowing what's still going on. Remember, we're only allowed to see what we can see. I don't think Julian meant anything negative when he said 80,000 people at all. I think he has the info that he has been given. He hasn't dug in the way that we have. But 80,000? No. At least 5 times that amount, if not 10. And we don't say that with glee. We just say it because it's reality. And if the Lancet says it, chances are it's pretty damn close. And what I give these guys a lot of credit for is recognizing that silence is violence. And not a lot of people are willing to say that, but they are. Silence is violence. We'll continue.
There's hope.
Depend on what your timeline for, like, if we achieve
It's good,
utopia
30
in 500 years.
Oh, utopia? I'm not. I'll be long gone.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No.
You want to be hopeful.
I want to be hopeful.
I'm hopeful
by the time I'm
eventually.
60
That's
that things are all right.
60 might be a little young.
I'm an optimist.
I'm optimistic,
optimistic.
but I'm optimistic that eventually, I don't know if it's now, but it could be today, it could be tomorrow.
So do you think next, let's just
Later
say
that day, the world rose.
ended.
Ended. Okay.
Let's just say next 4 years. Are we going like this, or is there a little boop?
Well, sometimes it has to do that before it goes up.
Honestly, I was thinking about this the other day. I think that nothing is
people
going.
are awakening.
Well, I don't think anything's going back to normal though, because cat's out of the bag, genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah.
Trump unleashed a thing.
We're just still mourning. People are still like upset. They're like in the Matrix. They're like, "What the fuck?"
They're like, I
they
can't believe
haven't-
this has happened.
Yeah, they haven't. But eventually, they might become the one.
Yeah. Oh, Neo.
Or they might, be like, okay, let's wear cool leather jackets and fight them. But
Okay. What he just said is the key point to this entire story, which we have been saying for the longest time. Trump let something out of the bag in the world of politics that is never going back in the bag, at least not for the people that have decided to wake up. Because there are millions of people now that are aware of what's going on, and they are not going back to sleep. I'm not going back to sleep. I highly doubt anybody in this audience is going back to sleep. And every day that passes is another person that could join us in this America First movement towards a better tomorrow, because that's what the movement is going to be. Not America only, but America First. And that movement does not involve the Zionist movement. It involves waking up the millions upon millions of the masses in this country that are of the working class, that have to unite around core economic, environmental, and even some social issues. That's our future. And these guys get it. Remember, a lot of issues get put to the forefront because they're good distractions. They're good dividing lines. But anything that involves talking about what is money, tuition-free trade schools, to learn a skill so that you are viable for a future that is uncertain? How about clean air and water? Anything that gets in the way of capital, Zionist ruling class capital, is controversial. And it is silenced, as we've seen. I want to be very clear about some of these movements that are starting now. And I'm not going to hate on anybody in particular. We both like More Perfect Union, and they do good work. But if an organization thinks that it's going to become a progressive response to Charlie Kirk on college campuses around the country, you have to think long and hard about who you're trying to appeal to when you put certain people at the forefront. You also have to take into consideration all that is going on around college campuses around the country. If you are not leading with an anti-Israel message, you don't deserve any support. This is the issue of our time. Everything else basically comes second because of everything that they control. Anything that you want, this is a problem. Very good point. Data centers. Why do we need them? Are you really benefiting from data centers? No, but the rich and powerful are. That's what it's there for. Data centers are specifically they're for war. They're for war games. It is the military industrial complex on steroids. That's what it is. When I hear people say data centers create jobs, yeah, just like oil pipelines create jobs. What would really create jobs here in the United States is if we had a jobs program for the jobs that are really needed to advance our society. Do you realize that China has 6,000 kilometers more high-speed rail than we do? Imagine how many jobs that could create. I'm a huge advocate for nuclear power. Think about all the nuclear power plants in parts of the country where nobody lives that you could easily have it there and power cities around the country without having to do it through coal or natural gas. But no, we don't have that. Why would we? And I'll show you a very good example. Colin, can I have the Duke story, please? If you are attempting to do anything around the United States and you think you're going to have a story that doesn't get addressed like this one, this is an example of whatever they have planned, whatever more perfect university is. If you don't address this issue and if you don't become controversial, then there is no point. Student Affairs freezes funding, revokes recognized status for Duke's SJP chapter. Now, what is SJP? Students for Justice in Palestine. Duke's Students for Justice in Palestine chapter has been suspended for organizational activity after the Office of Institutional Equity received complaints about an alleged, anti-Semitic Instagram post, setting off a weeks-long dispute between the group and Student Affairs over the authority behind the disciplinary actions. On March 24th, Ben Adams, Senior Associate Dean of Students for Quad X, informed SJP leaders that OIE had received complaints regarding a March 13 flyer promoting an SJP general body meeting published on the group's Instagram. According to email correspondence obtained by the Chronicle between SJP leadership and the OIE, 10 students had filed complaints. Would you care to guess who those 10 students were? The flyer featured an illustration by artist Emory Douglas, originally published in the newspaper The Black Panther in 1970, depicting two pigs, one labeled U.S. imperialism, holding the torch of liberty, and the other labeled Zionism, holding the Star of David. In a subsequent email to SJP leadership, Adams wrote that the depiction of the pig holding the Star of David is alleged harassment under the policy of prohibited discrimination, harassment, and related misconduct. Keep this in mind, and this is a very important part of the story here. Notice how he doesn't give a flying fuck about any of this being thrown at America. But if you throw it at Israel, well, then that's a bridge too far. Now we have a problem. So again, they give away the game every time. They don't even hide it anymore, which they shouldn't, because that's better. If you don't hide it, more people might see it. Adams, on behalf of Student Affairs, asked the group to remove the post, which it voluntarily did. Then Student Affairs restricted SJP's recognized group status and froze its funding. So not only did they get on their knees for them, they still fucked them anyway. So what's the point? Why give in? This is one thing that we know for sure. Why give in? When you know what they're going to do anyway. The best you could do is be defiant. If you're going to lose standing on your feet. Don't lose sitting on or getting on your knees. What's the point? Emails from SJP leadership to OIE show that the post was referring to for including anti-Semitic imagery, sure, which may violate the PPD HRM policy. Per the procedures of the initial assessment, which is currently being carried out, is conclusive. SJP would receive a notice of allegation signifying that a formal investigation has been opened. Under PPD HRM, OIE holds the jurisdiction to enact measures against student organizations. And even then, those measures are labeled as supportive, which cannot be imposed for punitive or disciplinary reasons and are meant to restore or preserve a party's access to Duke's programs and activities. However, according to the emails, the funding and student group status were revoked by Student Affairs, not OIE. The Chronicle revealed an email where SJP leadership sent OIE a written account of a meeting where OIE confirmed it did not authorize or initiate the freeze or Instagram post takedown request, and that a formal investigation has not yet been opened. OIE did not dispute SJP's account of the meeting. Through subsequent correspondence with Adams, SJP leadership contested the jurisdiction of student affairs to impose disciplinary measures. Duke SJP is committed to engaging with a process, good faith, and following the procedures. Yes, I'm sure they are. Holding ourselves accountable to these standards, and likewise expect any authoritative body to act within its proper scope and on the basis of clear established policy. Adams responded that the Dean of Students' office holds independent authority to implement interim measures on recognized student organizations. He said the decision reflects both the current complaints and the cumulative context of prior conversations with SJP leadership over the past 2 years, as well as the organization's social media activity. Scroll down a little bit, Colin. In response to the Chronicle's inquiry on the intention of the cartoon and the general body meeting post, SJP leadership said the image was never intended to be anti-Semitic. Again, if you're explaining, you're losing. And the criticizing Zionism as a political movement is not the same as targeting Jewish people. They added that in the same issue of the Black Panther where the image appeared, it explicitly stated that the struggle is directly solely against what it calls the Zionist regime. But remember, in the United States, Zionism and Judaism are considered one and the same. You cannot break up from those two things. And so if you're going to start any type of a movement around the United States to meet with students on campuses, the only way forward is if you truly break away from the establishment. But the one thing we've noticed about these organizations, including by the two people that are apparently leading More Perfect University, Elise Joshi and Jack Cioccarella, they're part of the Democratic Party establishment. They may claim that they're on the outside looking in, but we all know that when push comes to shove, they're going to do exactly what they all do. They are going to fall in line and tell you to vote against a Republican. Why? Because they're two birds of the same. They're two wings of the same bird. That's what the problem is. And they don't want to accept that. And the big difference in the America First movement is they have accepted that the two-party system is broken and can't be fixed. There are still way too many people who think it can be on the Democratic side. And that's the ultimate sin. If you have no leverage, you have no change. If you create leverage, you might have change. But you don't know the first damn thing about it. And that's why the left always loses, because they don't know how to enact change, because they don't know how to create any type of leverage. They will always capitulate. And this will be another example of that. You capitulate to those sons of bitches at Duke? Are you crazy? You get what you have coming. And this is exactly why, as I've talked about on this channel at great length, the unification right now in terms of political factions when it comes to the America First movement has to be between progressivism and libertarianism, because those are the two outside entities looking in at a system that they know is broken, but that they just for some reason never seem to get along enough, long enough to actually make that change. But if it kills me, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying because I know it's worth fighting for. And so I am pleased to welcome for the first time, and hopefully not the last time, Dave Renner of the Liberty Vault. Welcome to Revolutionary Change.
Hey, Peter, thanks for having me, man. I really like what you said there about the linkage between, the distant left and the distant right on issues like this related to Israel. That is what we can coalition on this single issue and, not compromise necessarily on all of the rest of our beliefs. So I really like what you just said there.
Appreciate you being here, and I definitely agree. And we have a mutual friend in Clint Russell, and when he's been on like 3 or 4 times, and every time I get him on, we always talk about with him the importance of figuring out where can we compromise. Like, are there specific issues that I think are important for somebody who leans left from the populist standpoint? And I do believe that single-payer healthcare is the only way forward in terms of healthcare in the United States. But on the other hand, I also believe that ending the Fed is probably the only way that we are going to get out from under the boot of the corporate establishment. And he actually agreed. Do you see a line where progressives and libertarians can form these coalitions and get back to this old thing of compromise in politics where we can perhaps give in on one issue and the other side gives in on another to actually get things done. What do you think?
Well, I don't even know if that's necessarily obligatory, that that's the way we have to coalition. I think it can be on these single issues where if you're, a dissident leftist populist style in terms of healthcare, and I'm a radical anarcho-capitalist like Clint Russell, by the way, we don't have to, take on that issue. We can unite on this issue. Maybe we'll live to fight another day on the others, but this doesn't make either you or me give up our principles on those issues. I would not have the government be involved in any sector of the economy. And I know that probably will make some of your audience squirm or squeam, but to me, that is the most libertarian viewpoint, the most private property oriented viewpoint. But me and you can get along on this issue of the Israel first mentality that's so pernicious, and it pervades our government in the uniparty in both ways. And you're seeing this really happen in the independent media, where it's people like Anna Kasparian and, Jeffrey Sachs and Douglas McGregor and Caitlin Johnstone and Anthony Aguilar and all these people, a lot of which I think me and you know. I know Anthony, He actually, talked to me about your show. We can unite on that issue and we don't have to tackle the other issues. It kind of breaks the political paradigm. The regime isn't really ready to handle that kind of coalitioning, and we can just save those other issues for later. I know that's not easy for the tribalism and the impulses in humanity to never want to unite with the other side culturally, but I think that it can be possible in an age of new independent media.
You are definitely a very direct and honest operator. It's part of the reason why I think we'll get along swimmingly as I do with Clint. Whether you like his politics or not, you know exactly where he stands. One of the things that I think comes into focus, and I see this a lot in left politics, and maybe it's more of what I consider to be, you could call it the loony left, the overwoke left, whatever you want to call it. But there are way too many people who form these sort of purity observations where, yes, we do agree on this very important issue, but you don't agree with me on these other issues, so I don't want to work with you. Now, how much of that do you attribute to just it being, this is their neurological makeup, or are there a lot of saboteurs out there that we're just not aware of that actually are doing this deliberately so that we do not unite along, let's say, class lines and on the issue of Israel?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I do think it's a combination of both, and maybe that's the easy way out of this question. But I will tell you this. I think that the last two genuine, organic kind of political movements in the United States are the Tea Party and the Occupy movement, and they both occupy different spaces ideologically to some extent, but there was overlap. There was overlap in opposing the TARP bailouts and everything that happened in the fallout of the global financial crisis. And what they did was inject, and I'm talking about the regime, they deliberately injected all this culture war nonsense to pit us against each other. I truly believe that, and you can verify that. It's pretty well documented if you search, like, terms that could be attributed to the culture war: race war, sex war, war on women, white supremacy, just skyrocketed in the mid 2010s. But at the same time, Peter, too, I do think it is a natural impulse of humanity to want to be a part of a tribe, much like it is to have a favorite sports team. You always want them winning. And some people can kind of lose that attachment easier than others. But I think that that's an innate part of humanity, too. So it's not an easy question to answer, but I think both impulses play.
That's a very good point. And as a New York Giants football fan, considering how we've been meandering in the wallows of mediocrity, if not outright pathetic, footballing for the last decade plus, I must say that that is the only I would consider family or tribe that I would consider myself a part of. And as a Packer fan, I'm sure you understand. With that being said, when I was in DC a couple of weeks ago, the thing that I observed, two things I observed. When you're walking in that Capitol perimeter and you're amongst thousands upon thousands of people, there's two things that stood out. One, the business of government is way too big, like insanely big. And you also notice how many Zios are running around the halls of Congress all day, every day. So when you understand that it isn't just the money, it's the psychological pressure that they choose to put on people. And it isn't a bunch of old people. It's like college kids. These are young people who have every intention of making it their life's work. They're all, you know what they are, David? They're a bunch of Shabbos Kessenbaums running around the halls of Congress. That's who they are. And if we don't come to terms with our ability to unite around these issues, to have people coalescing on Capitol Hill, that's also something that I think is imperative. Like at the state level, there are things that we can do. I'm in Florida, you're in Wisconsin. You know, these are two unique states in their own respects. I prefer the Wisconsin model, certainly more so because it's the history of Wisconsin being such a very strong, progressive yet libertarian populist state, has such a rich history, and it's so much more involved in a way that I wish Florida was. Florida is also a much bigger haven for the Zionist cause. That being said, I do think that there are ways that we can continue to build up these networks. And I really hope that people realize that you kind of just have to, put differences aside, because if we do not deal with this, Israel will drag us to hell with them. Period.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that for sure. I'm actually in Nashville now. I did live in Wisconsin for a long time, but I totally agree with you. And the entire political system is kind of captured by the Israel lobby on both sides of the fence. But what we're seeing now, Peter, is just vast swaths of the right move away from the Israel first attachment. It does break down on generational lines, and that's something that's worth noticing. But there's such a disconnect between where the culture is at on this issue and where the political class is, not only the bureaucracy, but obviously the presidency, Congress, etc. So I think that explains why the Zionist lobby is acting so extreme and so radical right now, right out in the open, brazenly bragging about the greater Israel project, as Bezalel Smotrich does, as Netanyahu does, as they always do, because they see their window of opportunity to get what they want done under Trump. Yeah, a narrowing window of opportunity. So I agree with you. We have to educate the masses. There has to be a continual trajectory away from this. And, we haven't seen it manifest in the political system yet, but I'm telling you, in 10 years, I really have the white-pilled belief that we will see differences in how these issues are handled, where a presidential debate, instead of being focused on the subject of who supports Israel more, might be focused on who supports Israel less, whether or not it's just rhetorical. I do think we're going to see some changes kind of manifest.
I think you're right in that the timeline is probably about a decade. I think that the next presidential election is going to be very interesting in terms of who runs, and I do think the rhetoric will start. I don't think the change will happen. I think it's very likely that a Democrat might very well win the next election. But the problem with that, I believe, and this is one of the reasons why I have a lot of respect for Tucker and Candace, because the thing that I've noticed from them in particular, and they are the two most influential voices in the America First movement, the people that supported Trump or that supported the GOP, they are not married to the political party the way that people who vote for the Democratic Party are married to the party. And whether it's a very fear-based mindset that liberals and progressives tend to have, even though they know that these people will never serve their interests. You can name anybody. It doesn't matter. It's Gavin Newsom. It could be AOC. It could be Governor Pritzker. It could be Governor Whitmer. It could be Governor Shapiro. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. There isn't this person that stood out. The only person in the last, I don't know, since JFK, the only person who ran for president that truly stood out was Bernie Sanders in 2015 and 2016. And then for whatever reason, he got his head straight after that. And his run in 20 was nothing like it was in 15 and 16. And so people that are still hanging on to that, they're going to find out very quickly that there is a difference between what somebody like Hassan Piker is selling versus what somebody like Tucker Carlson is selling right here.
Looking back, because I mean, you and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. It's like, in very small ways, but in real ways, you and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now.
Yes.
So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences.
I couldn't agree more. And it takes a lot of courage to do this. On the one hand, I think one of the biggest reasons that he is saying what he's saying is because he has fuck you money. He is under no obligation to play footsies with anybody. I do believe he is CIA. And I do believe there are people that work in the State Department that all don't agree with the same thing. There isn't this like universal agreement within CIA, NSA, FBI that everybody is all on the same page. They're not. I think Tucker had sort of a come to Jesus moment, whatever it was. He woke up one day and realized that I have to do something. And he has been as stick-to-itive on this issue as one could hope anybody would be. And he is making no compromises. And he does it in such an effective way. No one is as effective as him. He's as good as it gets. And that is why, even though I have some significant policy differences with him, but I also agree with him on a number of things. And I think this is, as much as anything, a significant place where if there is an area to come together on, this is huge. He is saying, I messed up. I messed up voting for Donald Trump and telling you to vote for him. Has anybody, and I mean anybody of prominence in the Democratic Party come out and say, you know, we probably would have been better off with Bernie Sanders. Instead, I told you to go vote for Joe Biden, and you did, and now you see where we are. I don't see anybody who's ever said even something even close to that. And yet Tucker, who's as influential as anybody, is saying just that, and I think it's great.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more. This is such a good point. I'm so glad you brought this clip up because, yeah, I don't see the liberal counterpart to this. And I'm with you. Bernie did kind of represent the most populist Democratic candidate a long time, but then he, gave all of his political support over to Hillary Clinton. This would be as if like Oprah Winfrey got up at the height of the Obama presidency and said, I supported this guy, but the war in Libya is a disaster. Starting Operation Timber Sycamore in Syria is a disaster. That's what this really would be for how much Oprah Winfrey kind of moved the culture at that time. On the right, Tucker's the biggest voice on the right, arguably. Candace is the other real big candidate for that distinction. So I totally agree. I've not seen a liberal counterpart do this. That doesn't mean I'm more attached to like the conservative establishment. I'm not at all. Actually, in some ways, I think, leftists are so much better on wars, and especially wars related to Israel. But this does show real courage. It is a major moment. And it's that humility, Peter, I think that a lot of people love Tucker for. He'll tell you, like, I led people astray supporting the war in Iraq. He says it countless times. I was a neocon. I was a blood-soaked neocon propagandizing for their ridiculous wars. And he has the humility to say it was wrong. I was wrong for supporting him, and I don't see that counterpart in the liberal wing.
We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional. That's all I'll say. But anyway, the question does present itself immediately, like, what is this? Was this always the plan? You don't want to be a conspiracy nut, but like, clearly there were signs of low character. We knew that.
Yes.
There's a thing called power dynamics in politics, and you will see it. And you're going to see it in the state of Tennessee very soon. For those people that have watched WWE wrestling, Glenn Jacobs is the mayor of Knox County, where Knoxville is. He is quite a dynamic personality, and he is a giant of a man. I met him once. I can tell you you can understand how he can pick guys up with his bare hands. He is probably going to be the next governor of Tennessee, and he could very well be a presidential candidate in the near future. Now, why do I say this? Because the power dynamics in politics is very unique. Now, is it possible that somebody like Glenn Jacobs has the wherewithal to manage that type of responsibility? It's possible. We'll see. But very often, it is a cliche, but with great power comes great responsibility. And very often people who get this type of power, they don't know how to manage it. And in some cases, they manage it in very sadistic ways. And so the fact that Tucker is so understanding of his position that I think a lot of others are not, is where I tip my hat. When I hear somebody, again, there really is no comparison, but in terms of the person who's clearly getting the most attention right now in left politics, Hassan Piker. That is a person who, in my opinion, has no concept whatsoever of what it means to be in a position of actual power and the level of responsibility that comes with that. Tucker absolutely understands it, and he's trying to do everything he can for the betterment of humanity as a result. And that's why I feature him as a person to look to say, look, he may not have all the answers, but I truly believe he's going to do everything he can to try to steer us in the right direction. And Lord knows, in the lawless country that we're living in right now, we need that more than ever.
Yeah, we sure do. I'm not too familiar with Hassan Piker's content to really opine on him in particular, but I will say, yeah, indeed, that is what a lot of people respect about Tucker Carlson. And as you know, probably, Peter, he spent about a month prior to this war trying to persuade Trump not to launch this war, just like the guy before him did that ended up dead in Utah, Charlie Kirk, who made it a point to say, it's my personal mission to dissuade Trump from launching this war. We saw how he turned out. I don't have all the answers there to know if the feds were in on that, but it is pretty telling that then that's the war that they launched for Israel's benefit just months after it. And absolutely, as far as Glenn Jacobs, I've met him twice. He follows me on Twitter, and yeah, he's an imposing figure. You're right about that. I think Marsha Blackburn's going to walk away with this governor race, but I think you're talking about maybe the one after that. And yeah, his name has been raised for the potential race after that. Indeed.
I do believe that the importance of keeping the Charlie Kirk story alive cannot be overstated. I think it is imperative that we do. Something very interesting and funny actually happened just before he passed. He made this compilation video of about 6 or 7 content creators, and he featured people that he thought were, I guess, worthy adversaries in left politics. He had Cenk, he had Hassan, he had may have had Anna Kasparian. He had a few people that he threw in there, and then lo and behold, I show up, and I'm thinking, wait a second, I'm not that big of a deal. I appreciate the fact that Charlie recognized me and thought that he saw something there that to put in that video was necessary. But at the time, I was like, all right, well, it really is quality over quantity. And the one thing about our channel is that we have made it a point to not scurry this issue in any way, to not only go up to the line, but step over it. I lost my job. I've been visited by the police. We have been shadow banned. We are being followed. And I wouldn't change anything, because I know that if there's something about this life that we live, and we're pretty sure we only get one crack at it, we're all going to die. So let's make sure that we actually live for something.
Yeah, let's stand on our principles, man. And I'm with you. I covered the Charlie Kirk assassination and really what became, I think, the story behind the story that, a lot of people wanted to talk about who's responsible for Charlie's death. And I would never shut the door on that topic. I don't trust any FBI narrative. Neither does most of my audience, for good reason. They're literal murderers. They put women and children on fire at Waco. They shot people at Ruby Ridge. They wiretapped Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Stokely Carmichael in COINTELPRO. But really, the story behind the story was really raised by independent journalists like my favorite leftist, Max Blumenthal, when he had that expose talking about how much pressure, love Max, how much pressure the Zionist billionaire donor class pressed on Charlie in those last months and what really that could indicate. And with Charlie saying, I've lost faith in the pro-Israel cause, I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, is a really major moment that Candace just put egg all over the face of the Zionists that were saying she was lying. No, Charlie Kirk went to his grave as the most ardent pro-Israel force in America. It just couldn't be more further from the truth. And I didn't know this until this came out. I was never really a big Charlie Kirk fan, but you could see in his episode in August, but the month before his death with Megyn Kelly, like he was starting to feel the frustration about this, people questioning his integrity, and he couldn't criticize Israel. It jumps off the video if you watch that today.
As soon as it happened, I believe that you should just believe what's in front of you at all times. And the second it happened, couple things. First, you had the real president of the United States come out and make a statement about how may his memory be a blessing within minutes, within minutes of his assassination. Then the only reason we knew that something was afoot is because it was amateur video in the audience that captured the killing. Somebody was filming it as it happened, and you could see what, the Jen and I have a theory that if there is a way that they took him out, it was through some type of a bomb in his lapel, and it exploded. That to me seems like a logical way based on the way that the blood splurted and where it came from. It could be wrong. But what we do know for certain is that they completely paved over the crime scene within hours. Nobody does that unless they're hiding something. And whatever they're hiding, it's something extremely sinister, and we know that. Jen doesn't think he's dead. I think he's dead. If Candace says that he's dead, he's probably dead. And if that is the case, then you take it a step further and say, well, why would they have to silence him? He was the most impactful voice in right politics for the 18 to 29 demographic. He is the reason Trump became president again.
Yeah, he's a major reason for it. All parties agree on that. And I'm with you. There's just so many abnormalities in that. The two that stand out to me that I just can't get over is the 30-06 round being stuck in his neck. I mean, you talk to marksmen. This is not my expertise, but I've found almost no one that can possibly believe that. And then they had it compared to the gun and they couldn't match it. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't have come from the gun they're saying, but what they did in the analysis was determine they couldn't make a match. And also George Zinn, the decoy that runs forward and says, I shot Charlie Kirk. And then he goes off to the police station. And then he said, the reason I did this was to help the real killer get away. He's let go after a child CP charge. And we never hear about it. It's just totally memory hold. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
And this is another example of, okay, if you don't understand the Patriot Act and what that represented and how that was on the books, and 9/11 clearly was an inside job because that's how they ended up getting the Patriot Act through. The Patriot Act is the surveillance state. That is what it became. And as a result, they know everything about everybody. So if you've got somebody, for example, who's got child porn in their background and has a history of being involved in very controversial things like 9/11, as George Zinn was, and all of a sudden out of the clear blue sky, he just happened to be in Salt Lake City, or in this case, Ogden, on that very day, at that very event, and happened to get involved. But it's just a coincidence. There's nothing to see here. Then you have the meeting in the Hamptons. Then you have the meeting at the White House. But Israel had nothing to do with this. What's great about Israel, if nothing else, what's great about the Zionist cause, if nothing else, it's all vanity. They absolutely are in love with their position of power, and they are convinced they can't lose it. So as a result, they're not very good, or they're not very subtle about protecting their position, which is why if we figure out a way to unite along class lines and around this issue, we might be able to defeat them before they take our country down with them. That's my theory.
Yeah, I hope you're right, Peter. And I think that does represent a large portion of the Zionist cause, the Zionist lobby, that they've been so untouchable for so long. They have their talons so deeply sunk into both of America's political parties. But I really do think that some are sweating. I do think that some are shaking and acting more radically than they would. That's why you have them buying up CBS and the Paramount, and trying to make a bid to buy CNN to make it even more Zionized than it already is. And TikTok, one of the biggest used social media platforms by the Ellisons, used to try to kind of rein America back in. I do think that there is concern behind closed doors that some people in this cause, in this lobby, won't admit outright, but they are seeing that door close. Others, indeed, they don't think they're ever going to lose it. And yeah, we have to unite to, shed truth on this dark part of America's political system that's been, entrenched throughout both of our lifetimes. So
I think that the big issue here, more than any other, is what is the conscription to Israel? Where does it stem from? To me, it always goes back to JFK's assassination and the Samson option. If they feel that they are backed into a corner, they will unleash hell on earth with nuclear weapons. And that is always the threat of protection, which is we simply have to let them do whatever they want, because if we don't, they will use them. They have a death wish, and they will do what they have to do if it means the end of their cause. Now, is there a way to call their bluff without causing nuclear winter? I don't know, but I know for sure that if you think the American empire is not going to collapse as a result of this unholy alliance, you're just not paying attention. The de-dollarization is in full effect. And one of the reasons why libertarianism is becoming perhaps the most underrated ideology in the United States right now is because most people do not know how to live off the grid. And if you don't, you better learn how. You better learn how to farm. You better learn how to cook. You better learn some form of masonry. There is a lot of things that you should be learning. And we can always learn skills and be tangibly beneficial. But to the people that are, frankly, on the blue team in most cases, that live in the cities, that live in the coastlines, they are not ready for this. They have no idea how bad this is going to get once it hits the fan. But there are many nations around the country, led by China, that want to get out from under our boot. And if we do not break away from Israel, they will be able to successfully do it. So this is exactly why, when we say America first, this is what it's about. This is what that movement has to be. If it isn't, then look at Charlie Kirk, and need I say more? And remember, the one thing, the true similarity between Charlie's assassination and JFK's assassination is that it was done in full view of the public, and it was done on purpose. They want you to know that if you don't go along with us, see Exhibit A or Exhibit B, and you could be next.
Yeah, I mean, probably so. And I think you're exactly right when talking about the financial system, because what we have as a result of not only the Israel First War, but also the Ukraine war, the proxy war against Russia, shows that these BRICS countries are having it up to here with the U.S. hegemonic conquest across the world. And what is just kind of a loosely knit economic alliance right now could turn out to be, something more like the Warsaw Pact, but even more like that, become a new financial superstructure that kind of creates a new reserve currency that gets adopted throughout the war, displaces the dollar. That is really at the core of what America First should be, as you said. And, whether your plan to kind of counteract that is gold or Bitcoin or barter or alternative currencies, whatever it is, that's something that Americans do need to learn more about. And I do worry about that too. It's something that libertarians have talked about a long time because of the threat of the central banks has imposed an inflation, which is really a hidden tax, as Milton Friedman called it, on the American citizenry. Because whenever they spend money, they're going to either borrow money, tax you later, or your posterity, which essentially they build shackles for, or inflate it through an unlegislated process determined by banker oligarchs. That's literally what they do. And that's why Americans pay more for food and fuel and raw materials, despite them saying, oh no, inflation is low. But what they really mean by that is, no, the dollar is still being debased. It's just being debased at a slightly slower rate than the fastest rate in human history over the last 5 years.
And this is why Trump is so dangerous, because he accelerates it to such a pace and with such bravado and bluster that you can't ignore it. You just can't. Whereas if you had somebody like a Biden or a Harris in charge at the wheel, so to speak, it would be managed so much better. This is why I've always said Democrats are more dangerous than Republicans, because they protect empire much better than Republicans do. When Republicans are in charge, you can see it from a mile away. With Trump, you could see it from, a galaxy away. With the corporate liberal establishment, it's based on vibes. It's based on decorum. And when you base your ideology along those lines of everything's okay, the adults are in charge now, too many people go back to sleep, and then there's no fight. And so this is the fight that we're facing right now. How do we get forward? How do we continue to push this narrative forward? I do believe that we are going to have very difficult times for a lot of people. I don't have an affinity for crypto, even Bitcoin, for this reason. It's too environmentally damaging. I believe that the data centers, which have little to nothing to do with anything that could benefit people. AI is a tool of the rich and powerful. It's a tool of the military industrial complex. That's all it's really for anyway. And when you think about the people who are in charge, especially Alex Karp, who is Big Brother come to life, if there ever was one, I've never seen anything like this where once it was decided that Silicon Valley was the new Wall Street, you put a bunch of non-empathetic, machine-like individuals in charge of everything. You had to know that things were not going to go well. And now we're seeing the ramifications as a result. How we get out of it, I'm not sure. But I would definitely say from tangible wealth building perspective, silver is the working man's barter tool and should be used. Gold is something to store value. And I do believe that various forms of real estate is also very important. And I'm not just talking about single family homes. I'm talking about places for business, things that could be used. There's so many different ways that it could be utilized, but we don't do it. Nowhere near like what we could do if we wanted to. As I had said earlier, the fact that China has 6,000 kilometers of high-speed rail that we don't have, just something as simple as that, and the tens of thousands of jobs that could create, that could be sustainable for many, many years to come. It's just one example. I'm a huge proponent of nuclear power. And I think that is the only way that you get off of fossil fuels. The only way. Sorry, you can have solar and wind and geothermal and everything in between, but you can't run citywide grids without something tangible like nuclear. Can't do it. So if you want to do it and you don't want coal and natural gas, this is how you do it. Again, I live in reality. And I don't mean that to insult people. We really have to recognize that the reason why there are parties, these dividing lines, is because it makes certain people a lot of money when we're at each other's throats. That's it. Controversy sells. Honesty, not so much.
Yeah, you're right about that, Peter. And man, there's so much in that. Yeah, I'm also a proponent of nuclear energy, and it's one of the most, I think it is the most regulated sector of the economy is the energy sector. And I think there's only been like 2 nuclear power plants built since the 70s when some of those laws came in. And it's just, you can't make that up. That doesn't benefit anyone, especially at a time when people are looking for energy diversification, trying to make America stronger by not being as dependent on foreign countries, while the United States fights a war to reopen the Strait of Hormuz caused by this war as a direct result of this war. And you said it all about Palantir, man. I try to do whatever I can to expose the madness of that corporation started by In-Q-Tel and the CIA to expand the surveillance state and centralize all of our data and use algorithms to decide, who lives or dies in Gaza. They do this overseas. They're going to take that technology and point it inward if we don't expose this. And it's just so absurd. Their manifesto they released the other day said, hey, we have to have a draft now, saying, hey, we're going to have a lot of wars that would provide a lucrative stream of money to Palantir and the military industrial complex. And they complained in that manifesto, one of the 22 points also, about apps. Apps are the enemy. The iPhone has apps, and that's consuming the American mentality. And what I think, if you read between the lines, that is they don't want to get criticized on social media the more and more people learn about Palantir. So just my thoughts.
I definitely agree. And I also think the reason why nuclear is as controversial as it is because it's not about Chernobyl or Fukushima. It is because it can actually supplant fossil fuels. That's it. If people really, if the powers that be, remember, you have 3 lobbies in the United States. Israel is its own thing. But in terms of domestic policy, there are 3 lobbies that are more powerful than anybody else. Big agriculture, big pharma, and big oil. And if you get in the way of them in terms of the ability to take away their financial infrastructure, they'll come at you with everything they got. No one is telling anybody to stop building solar panels. No one is telling them to stop building wind farms. No one is telling them to stop building, if you can, hydroelectric plants. However, no one is allowing nuclear power to become a mainstay. And to JD Party Hat, who's one of our OGs, how do you deal with the waste? Look into Series 4 nuclear power. These are smaller plants that have replenishable waste. That's how it works. There is a reason these things don't take off here, But you know where they take off, ladies and gentlemen? I'll give you one guess where this is very, very big. It's very big in China, really big in China, really great over there. And that's a big problem because China does have the ability to supersede us, and they're going to in so many ways because they understand global hegemony in a way that the United States, as it's currently constructed, can't hold anymore. And unfortunately, the people who are in charge are willing to sacrifice tens of millions of people in order to maintain whatever level of hegemony they have. This is, again, another reason why we have to unite around these core class line issues, because if we don't, well, you're up shit's creek. And I also want to point out, if there is something that we can universally agree on, which we should, which I think is very important. If anybody is a reason to unite, it's little Ben Shapiro.
I believe the Trump administration did not handle the narrative well and let this perception that the tail was wagging the dog with respect to the comments you made earlier that Israel somehow had bullied the president into the war. Are you worried, as I am, that Israel is going to lose even more support in the U.S. as the perception is we've been dragged into this war by Israel?
Well, Scott Galloway, you shitbag of a human. Yes, I absolutely do believe that. And by the way, Scott Galloway, one of the biggest shit libs out there, in case you were wondering.
Israel?
From my position, if Israel is safer and the United States is safer and the poll numbers are worse for the foreseeable future, then that is a deal that is well worth making.
Is this guy out of his fucking mind?
You know, I waffle between thinking he's out of his mind and then thinking like he knows exactly what he's doing, because you can't argue it's been successful at pulling Trump away from the Israel first or the America first rhetoric that people loved about Trump, and captured him and put him into the wings of Lindsey Graham and Ben Shapiro and Laura Loomer and Ted Cruz, who make it their prerogative to support Israel first. He's a charlatan. He's a manipulator. I think he's exactly knowing what he's doing. And what you've learned is that these neocon sycophants have just been able to just kind of manage Trump's ego, as big as inflated as it is, and call him the strongest president. You're so powerful. You've really etched a legacy here, and get him to do these things. And I'm not saying that this is really 100% new. It is going to a new stage with a new war. But in the first term, we know he moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. He shredded the JCPOA. He signed the Abraham Accords, and he killed Soleimani. So he did do the bidding of the Israel lobby in the first term. But you're seeing how these never Trumpers who went against him, they thought he was a madman. Why? Because he said, I want to get out of the Middle East. It was a big fat lie. Have captured him and reeled him back in. And that's where he stands today. So I think Ben Shapiro more knows what he's doing.
Better than me, Paul? Didn't you say you're hanging there all day? You're higher than me. You're better than me. Yeah, well, I don't miss you. You're not. I'm a father. I can think that you are not better than me at all. Yeah, I'll teach you.
We have this rule on our channel that if you summon Ben Shapiro 3 times in the mirror, he has to appear as he did as a teenager, trying to pretend he was a tough guy with a punching bag, and he got punched in the face by the punching bag. So,
okay, I was like, what happened there? But that explains it, I guess.
Listen, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I am absolutely a strong, masculine man, and I can please my wife. I don't care what anybody says. Trust me. But this is a prime example of a person who has shown time and again that if you think that Israel will not drag us to hell with them, see Ben Shapiro. He always, well, if it means the safety of Israel and America, then that is a sacrifice that I am willing to make. Yes, obviously you're willing to make it.
Yeah, he's not willing to fight in their wars, though. It's only younger people who get roped in most cases, under an earnest desire to protect their own communities, their own country, that are siphoned off by Israel. The IDF will never take part in any of these ground invasions. The United States exists for them to attach as a parasite to do that, to our detriment, to the detriment of the American people, with our service members in body bags, with our bases destroyed in the Middle East. I would end those bases, take every single serviceman away, but it is to our peril and to the perceived benefit of the Likudniks, not even, the only political coalition that exists in Israel, that we're to defer all of our sovereignty. It's so embarrassing, such a slap in the face. They call Israel the vassal state of the United States. It really seems like the United States is the vassal state a lot of the time.
Well, Jen likes to say that they are us and we are them. I would say that from the State Department, from the Beltway, yes, that is correct. And again, it is a cliche, but when you control the money, then you can control just about anything. And that, unfortunately, is the byproduct of the Zionist cause, which you could say has to do with wanting to control interests within the Middle East, West Asia. That's just one part of it. You have a ruling class in this country that is very much for the Zionist cause. And when you have the Jewish Zionists who provide the money and the Christian Zionists who provide the flock, again, they're the ones that are living in the heartland in the South. And you have, again, Texas is the biggest state in the country when it comes to Christian Zionism. You have Kenneth Copeland, you have Joel Osteen, you have Jonathan Hagee. You've got all of these really controversial individuals who, let's face it, this is all done for money and power, period. Kufi is just as powerful as AIPAC. But again, this gets back to, and why I think it's so important we have these conversations, because the one thing we've been pointing out about the Democratic Party, and one of the ways that they likely will seize power back in the midterms, has to do with we're against AIPAC. Okay, yeah, you're against AIPAC, but you're also funded by J Street. Do people not realize how many different pro-Israel lobby groups are on Capitol Hill? Maybe you should go there and see them, because AIPAC, again, they love it when you blame them. Heck, the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, he supports both major parties. It doesn't matter. And that is the danger in going back to sleep and having the liberal cause be put in charge, because they are so much better at selling it. They're so much better at convincing people that if we just couldn't get there, we'll get there next time. If you don't have Joe Manchin, you have Kirsten Sinema. If you don't have Kirsten Sinema, you have John Fetterman. If you don't have John Fetterman, you'll have somebody else, and they'll sell the same bullshit next time. Look at how close we got with our vote. And it's like, remember the Geico commercial? Oh, you almost got it. You got to be quicker than that. That's what it is. And there are people who still want to play on that hamster wheel. Well, guess what? As soon as you get off the hamster wheel, you look at the world a hell of a lot differently.
Yeah, sure do, man. Washington's so captured by these national lobbies, and I don't know what your audience thinks about this, but, it really has ramped up in the last century. And we had the 17th Amendment that supposedly supported the idea that we'll democratize the Senate by making those senators be elected directly by the people. But what really ended up happening is, instead of allowing the people to be the constituents, those senators went to Washington. They didn't return that often, and they became beholden to those national lobbies that grew out of the banking establishments, the military industrial complex, big oil and big energy. You mentioned that, big tech, big pharma. Everything is so entrenched in Washington that it's not representative. That's why I don't really think there's a panacea in terms of getting in the system and changing it from the inside. It's too systematic of an issue. I believe in pushing back from the states and localities using a principle called nullification that Thomas Jefferson and James Madison talked about in 1798 to, refuse to allow the enforcement of egregious, immoral, or unconstitutional acts within the territories of a state. And the states are tyrannical too. So if the states behave that way, do it at a county level. But it really takes education. It takes cojones on the part of elected officials that they don't often have.
I definitely agree with that. And Jen is a huge proponent of nominating judges, not electing judges. I think you could probably have a similar argument for the Senate as well. That's how people like Ted Cruz stay there. And again, it gets back to the whole, appointing, yes. So appoint judges and probably appoint senators as well. But, the end of the day, we are in a system that cannot sustain itself anymore. It's been completely corporate captured. It is, for a variety of different reasons. You could take different elements of different leaders throughout history. The only commander-in-chief that I truly have respect for is Teddy Roosevelt. And what's so interesting about his convictions versus others is that he was actually willing to die for what he believed in. And very few others have ever been willing to do that. I believe that the worst president we've ever had is Woodrow Wilson. I completely stand on that principle. I think so many things that transpired in his presidency, not the least of which is endless war that truly started under him. You also had the Fed. You also had, if you want to talk about a time where the media truly turned against the people, that was when it happened. And there are many other policies that happened, of course, at that time. And nothing's ever been pulled back. There are so many different things that, for the last 100 plus years now, we have been faced with, and we have never come to terms with it. The Fed is one of several, but that is just one example. And trying to create this new future is not going to be easy. It is going to take time. But the good news is there is a decent chunk of the population now that I think is embracing the fact that we do need a new path forward. We do need a new United States. Whatever that's going to look like, we're not totally sure yet, but conversations like this get us closer to it. Final thoughts as we wrap down the conversation.
Yeah, Peter, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's largely the result of the independent media that's providing more voices and choices than the establishment is frankly ready to deal with or doesn't know how to handle. And a lot of that will be co-opted. I think the ultimate example is Dan Bongino being clearly reassigned by the FBI back into the potosphere. But at the same time, people that watch my show and watch your show are exposed to these new interesting ideas that are counteracting, one of the most prevalent and powerful lobbies in the form of Israel, the Israel lobby, and more, according to the issues we discussed. So I think this is a window of opportunity that makes what me and you do just a great time in human history to do it, to really open people's eyes, open people's minds, which really has to precipitate any political movement that manifests in Washington to do it. That's for sure. But the first thing we need to do is unite on these single issues. I know me and you won't agree on economics all the time, but that's all right. I actually think you're a hero regardless of that. And we can set those things aside, work to end the lobbies. And yeah, thanks, Peter. I appreciate you having me too.
Anytime, Dave. I know we will definitely chat again. Like I said, we definitely have some really awesome crossover, particularly with Anthony Aguilar and Clint Russell. I'm sure there are several others. We should definitely keep this going. Whenever you want to have me on, you let me know, and let's just continue to, build the web, as Jen likes to say. It is imperative that we do it. Keep doing the great work that you're doing, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
You too, Peter. If anyone watching this wants, please subscribe to Liberty Vault. That's my channel. Really appreciate you and your audience that I know is really up to speed on this stuff. So indeed, we'll keep in touch. Thanks, Peter. Really appreciate it, man.
Same here, guys. Link are in the description. Make sure you subscribe to Dave's channel. We'll be talking, my friend. Have a great evening.
Peace out, man. You too.
I'll see you. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, this is why we do what we do. And we would ask wholeheartedly and humbly if you would go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite suppressed yet still growing channel. And we do want to give a big shout out to our super chatters who are already here this evening. Amber Valentine, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate you being here. Citizen Pendejo with the 50 pesos. Except for RC, I've called on bigger accounts focusing on how they remove pets is the escalation's next step. Kowal and McIntosh can be decisive here. I got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to, but I do appreciate it. And any sentiment that involves protecting our four-legged friends, 1,000%. Citizen Bendejo with the 20 pesos. I'm moving Stu to run slap regulations on YouTube. I think you're referring to Stu Peters. That will be interesting. Libertarian Social Dem with the 199. We also need to get rid of Brian Mast ASAP. Hey, easier said than done, unfortunately. You see, that's the type of person that Dan Bilzerian should be running against. If you're going to run against Randy Fine, which is the more sexier option, but you're not from there, that presents an even harder fight because there are other candidates challenging that could definitely use the help, including Aaron Baker. However, Brian Mast is the type of person who, if somebody who also served in the armed forces could call that bastard out, that is actually a really interesting matchup because Brian Mast fancies himself as a tough guy. So I could see that from a selling standpoint of a race that would be very interesting. And he's as big of a shitbag on Israel as Randy Randy Swine is. He also wore an IDF jacket on the Congressional House floor and never paid a price for that one. So you never know. Heike Panky, thank you for the $5, Peter. I thank you for your efforts and respect you for staying true to yourself. Cheers, man. I appreciate you being here and supporting our channel as well, my friend. Thank you very much. Quest Publishing with the £1. Greetings from across the pond. Thank you so much for being here. Jim Talib, as always, with the $5 super sticker. Appreciate you, my friend. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. YouTube can't throttle you worse. Why not bring back Stu? Hey, I had a great conversation with Stu Peters. I would talk to him again, even though we have obviously considerable differences on a number of issues. But again, this is about the future of our country and what we've got going for us right now. So yes, I would talk to him again. Honestly, whatever is going to be is going to be. There's only so much we can do. We just ask our audience to help out wherever they can to help us break through the algorithm if we can. Quest Publishing with the £2. We are hearing you here in Belfast. Keep it up. Well, that's great to hear, and we appreciate you. M Mountain Star Studio with the $2. Thank you for the education. Member of the Liberty Vault. Hey, great to have you here. Happy to have you on the crossover. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. Files are clear. Jeffrey funded culture wars for Israel. I have no doubt whatsoever that he did. MT Star Studio with the $2 again. Derek Bros Pyramid of Power decodes Zim Bem. Pyramid of Power is that is a huge part of the problem. And the way it's set up in this system, no questions asked, is a big part of it as well. David Crow with the $5. Has Dave studied Marxism, Leninism? All analysis seems shallow in the West since I have been studying. When it comes to libertarianism and whether that falls under the Ayn Rand philosophy, the Milton Friedman philosophy, or the philosophy that I actually take into consideration as far as one that I think has some merit, the Ron Paul philosophy, I do think that people that are used to rural living have a big problem living in large community settings and what that actually means. I think America has changed a lot in terms of how that type of living can be sustained. I think people get set in their ways. I don't think that the libertarian ideology is necessarily evil. I don't. I just think people believe that there are those who are simply capable of living without government. I would say that the government is necessary, but not at the scale that it's at right now. No way. And SS Wolfenstein with the SS Wolfenstein SS with the $5 super sticker. Thank you very, very much. And finally, I want to let you guys know that we have finally launched, truly launched, our Substack. And we are going to be working on it, and it is free to join. We ask you to sign up. Colin, if you have anything that we could drop in the chat right now so that people know how to sign up, if there is a direct link to our Substack, just that you can put in your email so that you can join our Substack, that you can follow our work, we would really appreciate it. It's going to help out the channel a great deal, especially with not only drawing in more people to watch the channel, but also to increase the overall volume and traffic when we do go live. Because as you know, we are a mouse fighting a gorilla in many ways. That is a huge part of what we have to deal with on a regular basis. Colin, do you have anything? Oh, here we go. All right. So there it is. Substack.com/@revolutionary change. So if you could, please go over to Substack and become a member. You do not have to pay. Just sign up over at Substack. You're going to get a lot of great content. Going to have clips. I'm going to do some writing. Maybe Jen will do some writing too. But this is what we're going to do. And it's going to hopefully help grow our channel out. It seems that a lot of others have used it. And that's great. So whatever is going to help, we are all for it. And if this helps, which it seems that it does for most, fantastic. Oh, great to hear. So yeah, if you guys can subscribe over at Substack, that would be great. Now, I know a lot of you have obviously heard this story about what went on in Lebanon the other day. the name of the game is cruelty. That's what Israel does. They don't just want to kill you, they want to rub your nose in shit while they're doing it. And so when they do something like this, you understand why. There's a thing in the United States called religious freedom, and we should honor and respect it. If people believe in Jesus as their Lord and Savior, whether I agree with it or not, it should be respected. But the idea that you feel the need to desecrate a Jesus statue, you're only reinforcing what we've always said, which is Zionists do not believe in God, but they believe God promised them Israel. So this town in Lebanon restored their statue of Jesus after Israeli soldiers destroyed it with a sledgehammer. So according to Al Jazeera Plus, after Israeli soldiers destroyed a statue of Jesus in Lebanon with a sledgehammer, the community replaced it with a new statue, gifted by Italian peacekeepers. Because that's what an Italian do. That's it. That's what you're supposed to do. Villagers in Debel, I believe that's how you say it, reportedly rejected a replacement statue provided by Israel. Good. Donating it to a local parish. Israel apologized for the attack. They apologized because they probably caught a lot of bad flack for it. After international outcry. But its attacks on Christians and Christian sites are not new. In Gaza, Israel has bombed at least 3 churches, while Palestinian Christian communities in the occupied West Bank face frequent settler attacks and military restrictions. Israel has killed over 2,400 people in Lebanon since March and is still occupying and conducting attacks across large swaths of the southern region. So, an Israeli soldier was filmed smashing a statue of Jesus in Debal, a predominantly Christian village. There is almost 2 million Lebanese people that are Christians in this country of Lebanon. Makes up about a third of the population. And one of at least 55 towns in southern Lebanon currently occupied by Israel. 55 towns occupied by Israel. Israel replaced the statue, but the family who owns the land rejected it. In its place, they erected a new statue, more like the original, gifted by Italian UN peacekeepers. After international outcry, Israel apologized. Yeah, apologize. Claiming it respects all religions. Yeah, they sure do. 2 soldiers were jailed for 30 days, but it has taken no action against soldiers or settlers for killing Palestinians since 2020. Of course not. Next slide, please. In Gaza, Israel has bombed at least 3 churches, including the 3rd oldest Christian church in the world. Jen, do you remember the name of the church? Forgive me, I'm not recalling that name right now. By the way, big shout out to all of you also following over on Rumble. Remember, we are Revolutionary Change on Rumble and Revolutionary Change on Instagram. And it has destroyed over 1,000 of Gaza's mosques. Last year, Israel settlers attacked and set fire to a Palestinian church in the occupied West Bank, dating back to the 5th century, and vandalized at least 45 mosques. But they have respect for all religions. Every once in a while, they have to do a little PR stunt to remind people that they are really just trying to beat Hamas and Hezbollah. It's their fault. The holy naivete. Thank you. Yeah, that's a big part of it. So don't think for a second that this is not a big deal, because it is. And as I was saying, the name of the game is cruelty. Now, how do we know it's cruelty? As we mentioned in the story from Al Jazeera Plus, 55 towns. Nativity. Thank you. 55 towns in southern Lebanon are now occupied. And this is a little something of what they are doing in southern Lebanon. Destroying solar panels. Why? What for? Let me tell you, there can't be anybody that has a bigger carbon footprint on this planet than the Zio scum. This is, I just saw it, I'll put it up there. Crazy Cat's right. It's another form of the Nakba. That's what this is. We are going to destroy everything that you hold near and dear, including something like energy. You know, natural energy. And to me, they are Earth's greatest enemy for sure. Now, we want to give another shout out to Al Jazeera Plus. This puts it all together.
Film me. I must not be seen doing this. This was my tenant. May she rest in peace. Mujta left us a small souvenir. Give us a tour of the new property. See what you get? What's waiting for you? Simply amazing.
Now, I want you to look at this face and realize that that is not a nice little Jewish boy. That is an enemy. That is a mass murdering enemy if there ever was one. Now, I don't know his name. I don't really care what his name is. But these are people that take great glee in going in and killing and harming innocent civilians. They all know what this is about. This is about the Greater Israel Project. There's no grand conspiracy here. They all know what this is for. And controlling resources is a big part of it. Controlling waterways. But again, Israel will not stand without us. Everybody wants them removed, pretty much. And again, that gets back to the power structure. How much longer are we going to be able to put up with this? Now, there are some Israelis who are smart enough to get the hell out of Dodge. That's why they're going to other places. We'll get to Greece in a minute. Cyprus, Argentina. But a lot of the world does not want them. And they're going to have a very hard time once things finally settle. There is no coming back from this. They will not get away with this. I know it looks bad now. And sometimes these things take a hell of a lot longer than they should. But rest assured, there will be light at the end of the tunnel because the world is uniting against them. And that is the way it should be.
Simply amazing.
There are many things that are quite obvious that we can say about this. One of them is, you know, when you loot someone's home after you've displaced them, that is a way of trying to take a chunk out of a society. You know, if you've been displaced from your home, you've had to leave. When you return and all your things are gone, it's harder to build back. It's more difficult to build back. It's an attempt to break resilience. The dehumanization of it, I mean, it's an almost nihilistic form of violence. It's truly disturbing. We can also think about how, you know, I mean, it's a settler colonial society. Like, if you can live on stolen land, if you can steal someone's home, what's a couch?
Perfectly stated. Listen to that last line one more time.
Like, if you can live on stolen land, if you can steal someone's home, what's a couch?
What's a solar panel? What's an heirloom of a photograph? What's a 5th century church? Nothing. Doesn't matter. I truly want to know who thinks that these people deserve anything other than the scorn from humanity forever. And make no mistake, they not only mass murder children, they abuse animals. They destroy everything in their path. And I mean everything. That's what they do. And so when you see what's happening in Lebanon, this is not going to end well for them or for the world as long as we continue to be party to it. But they're not going to stop here. They're going to keep expanding. But how are they ever going to maintain it is the question. Who is going to want to do business with them? Yeah, they might get control of certain important, let's say waterways, for example. Suez is one that comes to mind. But do you really think that the boomerang ain't coming back for them once we can no longer protect them? Or once we decide as a nation we will not protect them anymore? They have so much hell coming for them, they can't even begin to wrap their head around it. And good, let them not. Their ego and their vanity is so out of sight, out of mind, that all we're doing is documenting this and letting people understand exactly what they're doing. As I said, a lot of these stories, I don't really get to hear them because a lot of people don't want to talk about them. But as Jen likes to say, we have to bear witness to these crimes against humanity. We have to. Otherwise, we are not only doomed to repeat it, but we will not save ourselves. If you think that Israel can't take us down, they can. How do I know this? Because we are seeing what de-dollarization will do in the long run. And that will not stop. In fact, the more we are party to this, the faster they're going to try to pull it off within the BRICS nations. So keep that in mind. And fuck Israel all the way to hell. Now, with that being said, the Israelis, they have a very hard time not making themselves known when they go places. Actually, I think one of the reasons why Trump likes Randy Fine is because he actually looks thin in pictures next to him. For many years, and I'm talking many, many years, the closest ally for Israel is probably Greece, frankly, because they're right next to each other. And so very often, the connection between Athens and Tel Aviv has been very common. Quick flight, people constantly going back and forth. But the Greeks have turned substantially as a collective people against the Israelis. They don't like them there. And so now we are seeing a very controversial problem that exists not just over there, as it does here. We share a common theme. The overwhelming majority of the United States, the American people, do not want to be party to the Israeli cause, the Zionist cause. But the State Department does. And while the Greeks do not want to be party to this, the Greek government certainly does, because it pays. Again, pyramid of power. Israel moving to Greece. Israeli officials have officially requested the purchase of Greek islands as a safe haven for Jews. While the Middle East, West Asia, continues to descend into utter chaos, Israelis have realized that their existence in occupied Palestine is on the verge of being compromised. Thus, they are looking for Greece and Cyprus as potential landing spots. They're doing it. Colin, the suggestion that Greece would sell its islands to a foreign group is a betrayal of the Hellenic people, orthodoxy, and Greek history. Greece belongs to the Greek people. Reports from Israeli and Greek government sources suggest that Israeli officials have requested to purchase various Greek islands as a safe haven for Jews fleeing Israel. This constitutes a betrayal of the Hellenic people and the Hellenic state, the Greek ancestors fought and died for. Greece is not a country that can be sold to any other people for any purpose. Greece is a state and a nation which belong to the Greek people exclusively. Israel, or any other country for that matter, would not tolerate selling their land, infrastructure, or industry to a foreign power. The extent to which this has already happened in Greece is the result of foreign interference that the Greek people never asked for, and did not deserve. Although the reports are yet to be confirmed, this serves as a reminder to Greeks that Greece's sovereignty is not a guarantee, and the Greek people must be vigilant in defending it. You're damn right they should. Now, what's one of the ways that they could actually defend this? Believe it or not, there is actually a lesson here to be learned. Colin, if you would, please pull up the next slide on this story. 13 countries worldwide now ban Israeli passport holders from entering their territory. Here's an idea. Traveling with an Israeli passport comes with restrictions in several countries around the world. Currently, at least 13 countries do not allow Israeli passport holders to enter their territory due to political and diplomatic reasons. These countries include Algeria, Bangladesh, Brunei, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Yemen, and the Maldives. The Maldives are the most recent country to ban them. The bans are often rooted in these nations. The bans are often rooted in these nations' refusal to recognize the state of Israel, and they enforce strict immigration policies that prevent entry for Israeli nationals. Now, remember, one of the main reasons, and again, this gets back to the pyramid power structure, why is it that they are permitted into the country in the first place? Because money talks and justice walks. That's how it works. We may not want the Israelis in our country, but they come with a lot of money and power. And as a result, people are willing to look the other way as long as they're getting their wheels greased. In some cases, the restrictions are nuanced. For example, Iraq's autonomous Kurdistan region allows Israelis to enter, despite the national government maintaining a ban. Saudi Arabia, while generally barring entry, permits very limited exceptions for business or religious purposes. Again, money and power. The Maldives recently formalized its ban in 2025, explicitly prohibiting Israeli passport holders from entering the country. Other nations may refuse entry outright, deny visas, or impose restrictions that effectively block travel. These travel limitations impact Israelis who wish to visit the Middle East, West Asia, parts of South and Southeast Asia, and North Africa. For anyone planning trips, it's crucial to check the latest travel, Colin, the latest travel advisories, and understand that entry restrictions may change depending on diplomatic developments or regional conflicts. Being aware of these rules ensures safe and hassle-free travel planning. You know the Muslim ban that Trump has implemented here in the United States? Just remember, ladies and gentlemen, we could easily ban Israelis from coming to the United States as well. If you could do it for one country, you could sure shit do it for another one. So maybe that's something that we need to do. And maybe that's something that Greece needs to do. Quite frankly, Greece really should consider doing that if they haven't made a move for it yet. Why? This was captured in Greece earlier this week. Now, for those wondering, why is it that this Randy Fine in female form decided to do this absurd dance and act like a fool? It turns out that they were apparently offended by one of the help that had a Palestinian flag lapel on. They saw it, and then they started doing this shit. And that should not surprise anybody, because this is what they do. They will make your lives an absolute living hell. But if there's one thing you can tell by this image, and I'm not talking about the heifer, I'm talking about where they are. Where are they? Clearly, they're at some type of a resort. They're having a grand old time, and they're out there flashing their Israeli flag and acting like a bunch of morons. That's what they do. And all because somebody who is in the working class came up to the ruling class and was on the side of justice. No, we can't have that. Oh, no. Let's dance like a bunch of reading. I'm not going to say that word. I shouldn't say it. But they're animals. That's what they are. And they deserve everything they have coming to them. And one more time, just so that I can really rub it in her face, just remember, this woman thinks that she's hot shit. Like, really believes that. Really believes that she's God's gift. Because again, if it's implemented in your brain that you are the chosen people, you can dress very inappropriately for your size and think that you're beautiful. Give her credit. Hey, listen, if you think you look great, good for you. But this is a prime example of that ideology, just not knowing when to say when, and when you have gone too far. And they have gone too far for a very long time. They're all going to get what they have coming to them. But let this be a firm reminder Yes, yes, but that's what I've always said. This is the exact same thing that I said about Wasserman Schultz. Wasserman Schultz is a very ugly person outside because of how ugly she is inside. And that is the same thing that I would say to somebody like her. Same thing. That is what it comes down to. Because you don't judge people on the outside. You only do that once you judge them on the inside. This is a person who wants to act like a moron because somebody had the audacity. He didn't even fight with them. He had on a Palestinian flag lapel, and they were so offended by it. And they were offended by it in Greece. It's not like this is Tel Aviv. This is in Greece, and they saw that lapel and they said, oh no, we can't have that. So we have to act as we do, like animals. So when we say that we have to deal with this in very drastic terms, this is what we have to do. Greece, we're looking at you, baby. There are plenty of ways that you can remove passports. If other countries can do it, you can do it too. So do it. You sure as hell don't want that person coming into your country. Lord knows it would be a lot of work to get them out, especially if they don't want to leave. Hey, that's what I'm looking at. I think that's a great idea. We have been very direct all night long about these key stories. And of course, this is the last one for the evening. And it's the one that I want people to understand. The reason I'm not going to stop talking about Laura Loomer is two reasons. I got two reasons I'm not going to stop. The first one, which is the obvious reason, is because this despicable bitch of a human, I have no doubt, was responsible for me losing my job. So there is a personal vendetta against this person. The other reason is because, as much of a bimbo as she is, the President of the United States seeks guidance from her. Oh, listen, guys, I'm telling you, we've got to get Jen and Laura in the same place. Because Jen will put her down like the rabid animal that she is. And when somebody is wondering why it is that Candace Owens got under her skin in such a profound way, well, there's many reasons for that. However, and yeah, she's mental. She's definitely mental for sure. But I want people to understand that when it comes to the Zionist cause, there's two rules of thumb here when it comes to Laura Loomer. Number one, she's a lunatic. Number two, she is a whore for hire. And number three, she is very dangerous and she's a bigot, a very big bigot. But the Zionism really hits you hard. So here's Jigsaw.
Candace Owens is just one resentful ghetto black bitch. Like, that's literally what she is. She's a racist too. Like, you could listen to this, and I'm not a racist person, right? Like, I don't.
No, and of course you probably have one black friend that is a token that you could claim so that you could say you're not a racist. So I want to be very clear about this. This is what a bigot sounds like, and let's play it one more time.
Candace Owens is just one resentful ghetto black bitch. Like, that's literally what she is. She's a racist too. Like, you could listen to this, and I'm not a racist person, right? Like,
I mean, I would be lying if I wouldn't say that this is like not some stand-up comedy routine, because that's what it sounds like. But here's the thing. When it comes to certain words, if you're not going to say but you're going to say ghetto black bitch, you're saying the same thing. And we know it. And everybody knows it. I would much rather live in a world where we just know how everybody feels and thinks and says what's on their mind. There's one thing we know for sure about Laura Loomer. She will always say what's on her mind because she's a mental case. So I guess in that respect, it's a positive. But there's a lot of jealousy in that jigsawed face of hers. Man, it's such a perfect nickname. It really is. But let her spew some more bullshit.
I don't hate black people, but I say she's a ghetto black bitch because you have to listen to the way that she has so much resentment for white girls, like white girls with blonde hair and blue eyes. And, you know,
you are an absolute lunatic. I call you Looney Loomer for a reason. Candace Owens, one of the reasons why so much of white America loves her is because she is considered a well-spoken black woman. And the idea that you talk about her like she's ghetto trash, you couldn't be more clear in your jealousy of her. Candace Owens is a beautiful woman, and you are trailer trash. Like, really. It's... Bless your heart, Laura Loomer. Bless your heart.
I'm originally a blonde too. I have blonde hair and blue eyes, right? Maybe that's why Candace has so much resentment towards me. But listen to the way that she describes how traumatizing it was for her to go on a play date as a young black girl in Connecticut at the home of a wealthy white blonde girl with blue eyes. And she really sees Erica Kirk as that white blonde girl that got everything that she wanted while her mommy and daddy didn't love her. Mommy and daddy didn't love me, and I was jealous of the white blonde girl growing up who had mommy and daddy, so now I'm going to dedicate my life to destroying every pretty white blonde girl that has a happy family, because I don't have a happy family.
I think you're telling on yourself. I think you're telling on yourself. Could it be because there are members of your family that have tried to have you committed? And then you project onto somebody like Candace, who clearly is a very happy person. There's one thing I can say. Yes. Well, okay. So she's just trash, period. She is projecting hard, like very hard. I truly believe that Candace Owens is a very happy person. And how could she not be? She's very successful. She's happily married with kids. She is fighting on the side of justice, particularly when it comes to the issue of Israel. But, you know, Loomer has the ear of the president because she's a sellout like him. And Candace doesn't care about that. She did have the ear of the president for a while, but she decided that being on the side of justice was more important than being on the side of the pyramid of power, which is all you care about. You don't have an ideology. You were spewing whatever bullshit you could get your hands on back when he was running for president, saying no war with Iran. Now you're celebrating war with Iran. You will do whatever you're told, and you will push it in whatever direction it has to go in, and whatever currency you use in order to get this position. Whether you're pulling a bunch of Diana Rossinis, those in the audience will get the reference, whatever it is. To actually talk like this about Candace, there's a reason she's talking like this, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's finish it out.
I don't have a happy family, and my husband is allegedly getting his ass plunged by Milo Yiannopoulos. So I'm going to destroy everything that I've wanted to destroy since I was a young little black girl whose parents didn't love her.
This is a hard projection if there ever was, which is pathetic and sad. And yet you would ask yourself, what is it? What could Candace Owens have possibly done to set off Jigsaw in such a profound way? Well, it turns out she did quite a bit. This is the reason that Laura Loomer spewed her bigoted hatred in her direction.
Also a malignant sexual predator and has been repeatedly accused since the beginning of her career of raping and sexually assaulting men.
One more time.
Laura Loomer is also a malignant sexual predator and has been repeatedly accused since the beginning of her career of raping and sexually assaulting men.
Now, what's one thing we have always said about Candace Owens when we cover her on our channel? Whether you like Candace or not, Candace always brings the receipts. She is not going to make a blanket statement about somebody like Laura Loomer unless she actually has verifiable evidence. Like I said, I have the utmost respect for Candace for this reason. As successful as she is, politically, financially, in life, etc., the thing that she does that makes her so endearing to her audience is that she engages them. She wants them to be involved. She asks them to provide tips. Anything and everything that you can do to play a part, she requests it and she gives credit. And that's why she has these receipts. And here is the dirty details about Laura Loomer that can't be ignored.
That is not a typical thing that men come out with, that men come out and say, a woman sexually assaulted me, right? Take, for example, Alan Jacoby. This happened just last week, 10 days ago. He is the founder of Patriot Cigar, and he just tweeted this 10 days ago. Laura Loomer is a sexual predator psychopath. I was, in fact, a victim of her wrath. Loomer and I spent the day with President Trump at Bedminster watching the golf tournament from the president's box. She asked me several times for a selfie. As you can see, that lean line does not lie. She constantly got uncomfortably close to me. She groped me in the parking lot, grabbing my crotch very aggressively and demanding that I come back to her New York City hotel room to engage in some vile, descriptive sexual activities. She's an absolute psychopath who preys on men who she thinks that she can manipulate.
If this image looks familiar in terms of her getup, we've covered this before, that this is the same event that Laura Loomer in the same dress posed with President Trump in, where he's doing a really big thumbs up in the picture, and Laura's got herself wrapped around me real tight. Jen even said at the time, yeah, there's definitely something going on there. There is some type of a monetary exchange happening here. And I 100% believe it. As I said, there are those that will do anything for relevance. Laura Loomer is clearly one that will do anything for relevance.
She's a menace to society. Again, there are just a long line of men who have come out with a story like this. If you don't believe him, here is a video, if it has been going viral many times, of Laura trying to seduce a young man who is clearly uncomfortable on camera. Take a look at this.
Your hair and your eyes look so good. You're like beautiful.
Thank you.
You're like an Aryan degenerate goddess.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. You're Aryan too.
I know, but I'm Jewish.
It's okay.
Because you're such a cutie.
Don't mess my hair. God, fix it. Fix my hair. Did you fix it?
I did. But like that picture you posted on Instagram recently when you got like reinstated on Facebook was so hot. Like seriously.
I appreciate it.
It's so good.
It's a good picture.
Your skin and the Nazis hate me.
It's fun.
That is definitely not me. Don't even try it.
All right, people want to put me in a gas chamber because they're obsessed with the Jews.
I think they're just memeing on you, but it's okay.
It's okay. Right. I don't care. I love it.
It'd be like that sometimes.
I know. They're just jealous because I have big tits and an Ashkenazi IQ.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah. You got it.
Anyway, next time you're in New York, let me know. We'll hang out. Bring your girlfriend to New York sometime, and we'll all hang out. We'll go to like really cool restaurants and hang out. And we'll have a blast.
Yes, I will bring my girlfriend.
Yeah, I want to meet. What's Becca?
Yeah.
Becca.
Yes.
She's so sweet.
You remembered?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, you'll meet her.
You guys are so sweet. I hope it works out because, like I said, I know it's all an act. Like, I know everything you do on Twitter is like so fake and not real, but
Yeah,
like,
it's all fake.
it's so sweet that you like and your girlfriend have been together for 3 years. I love it.
I know, it's all an act.
Do you know something? Like, I'm gonna tell you a secret. Like, do you know so many people in this movement who preach trad life are like people on the side and like cheating on their partners?
That's
like,
so bad.
Like, they're not even like really trad life.
Such
like,
scum.
like my ex is like dating somebody who's like super trad life, and she was like my boyfriend while we were dating and like ruined our relationship. And I act like it's okay, but like it's really sad because like I love when people like keep, you know, tradition in their relationships.
Okay. Now, I may not be a body language expert, but this guy is screaming, "Get the fuck off of me," without saying, well, if I did that, she might hurt me in a bad way. That is an abusive type of person. Clearly. He's not even looking at her, and she's doing that. See, that's a power move. And you're going to hear more about it in a second. Let's continue.
It's just really sad.
Milo Yiannopoulos similarly described, and again, he published this, her repeated assault on a young Brazilian man who worked on her campaign. And he's not alleging here. Okay. He claims that it is a fact that he can prove through many messages. Take a listen.
Laura Loomer, who's the most insane person, and I was, you know, there was
good friends with Laura too.
Well, no, I was not good friends with Laura. I was loose allies with Laura until I met her, and then when I met her properly and spent time with her, I realized she was absolutely mental. I distanced myself very quickly. Well, I distanced myself because she used to force herself on young male volunteers.
So you can now see why. And again, I have no support for Milo Yiannopoulos. He's another opportunist that's out there like so many others. However, this is a prime example of why somebody like Jigsaw Face would make a statement to the effect of Candace Owens' husband is doing the nasty with Milo Yiannopoulos, who happens to be gay. So once again, why would she invoke the name Milo Yiannopoulos? Because Milo Yiannopoulos is exposing Jigsaw Face, just as Candace is doing.
20, 21-year-olds. And she would go in the middle of the night. And I mean, some men will find this to be quite titillating, although,
Yeah,
you know,
this sounds kind of good. What is
when you imagine sort of the face of the of the saw doll, you know, just sort of like you pull up the covers and there's the saw doll. I would like to play a game. It's less enticing, but she would climb into bed with these volunteers and them off in the middle of the night. Sorry to use that language, but I did tell you to put your children to bed.
No way. She wouldn't go and sexually assault random guys and just blow them.
Well, I'm telling you because I lived in the pool house with her victim in 2020, who didn't know how to make it stop. He was a young Brazilian volunteer on her 2020 congressional campaign. I know because I helped to run that campaign. Okay, so don't tell me you don't believe it. I was there. She was creeping into bed with him, and she convinced herself that they were in love. And he was coming to me every day saying, "How do I make this stop?"
You say, "Get off me." I mean, that didn't seem that hard. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you would think that, but this is a young guy who's, you know, I never really understood when people talked about power dynamics in rape before. I was like, okay, fine, either you want the sex or you don't, or whatever. But I kind of got it when this young man, which surprised me greatly, said, well, this was Laura Loomer. I didn't know how to say no. I said, what do you mean it's Laura Loomer? He said, well, she's like Laura Loomer. And I said, what does that mean? He's like, well, she might be a congresswoman. Like, I don't know if it's okay to like. And so I realized in that moment, especially because it was a man, which was so sort of peculiar and confusing to me. It was bizarre to me, but he meant it, and he was asking me how to make it stop.
And that is one of the reasons why sexual assault both ways does not get reported anywhere near as much as it could or should be. You know that there is a slush fund on Capitol Hill for sexual assault victims. That's real. I think it's in the tens of millions of dollars. Come on, man, I thought you liked me. That's why you know the Tara Reid story was absolutely true, just like every other that you hear about. Because these guys believe that they can get away with anything. And this is Laura Loomer thinking that they can get away with it. And who the hell is she? What did this young guy even know about any of this? He didn't know jack shit. Laura Loomer was running for Congress in a district she couldn't possibly win, but it didn't matter. She was a congressional candidate. She had some money behind her. She was friends with the president. So naturally, there is that power dynamic of, well, if I just mind my P's and Q's, maybe I can get somewhere in politics. We saw that happen in South Florida not too long ago with somebody who unfortunately was killed. There were people that were riding the coattails because they thought they were going places. And we see this all the time, all the time. So I 1000% understand what he's saying, and I agree with it. And it's a big problem. And there is no question that Laura Loomer is a sexual deviant, and she is just doing the reverse of what a lot of men do in power dynamic situations. That is exactly what they do to a lot of women. And in some cases, women choose to go down. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I do think that some of it is voluntary, and I think in some cases they feel that they don't have any other choice. And so this is a great example of that. Yeah. And that's why she's going after Candace, because Candace, kind of like with Erica Kirk, you want to come for the queen, you better not miss. And Candace is certainly a queen.
There are women who have spoken out and said that this is real, that she has assaulted many men. And like I said, she has never sued any of these people for putting this information out there. Instead, she just blocks them. So the question becomes, why does Donald Trump allow her anywhere near the White House?
Candace Owens is somebody who, like Tucker Carlson, I hope has a good amount of protection. She's definitely taking us places that we should be very grateful for, because very few people are willing to do it. But she is. Shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Should we really be surprised? Nothing at this point surprises me anymore. Did somebody try to assassinate Trump? Maybe. Thank you, Stephen. And, you know, there really is something to be said for how everybody now is convinced that all of this is in some way, shape, or form connected to this. Got to start up those wars again. Or, well, they never ended. They're just, you know, they're not full on raged, particularly with Iran. Mr. President, get back on the battlefield, or you will be a casualty. But we've come to the point where none of this should be surprising anymore. It's way too early to talk about it, obviously, and it is obviously at the end of the show tonight. But Jen and I will clearly talk about this on Monday. I am sure there will be a lot more to talk about. On Monday, we have a number of interesting stories we're going to address, including the NASA scientists. I wasn't going to do that without Jen, so buckle up for that one on Monday. They're all things scientists. What else are we going to talk about Monday? We are also we might talk about the Resnicks and pistachios. Jen has some ideas. I'll have some more as well. But we hope you enjoyed it. This was a good show. I felt good about this one, even though the audience wasn't where we'd obviously would like it to be, but we do the best we can with what we got, and we're very grateful for all of you guys. One more time this evening, if you are so inclined, make sure you go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite suppressed yet still growing channel. And also, make sure you go over to substack.com/@revolutionarychange and sign up for free. And the final super chatters for the evening, let's give them a big shout out. Mountain Star Studio, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate it. Libertarian Social Dem, good to see you, pal. Don't give up on selling single payer to libertarians. Hey, not a chance. That is the one priority. If there is a priority of left politics that I am 1000% behind and will not stop fighting for, it is single payer healthcare, pure and simple. Valros with the $5. Cheers. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Oh, as if I wasn't charming enough. Thank you for gifting the 5 Revolutionary Change memberships. Appreciate you, my friend. And thank you to all of you that support our efforts to try to bring about positive change in an otherwise very dark world we're living in right now. So smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. Jen and I will see you Monday at Free Palestine. Good night, guys.